Hello, everyone. Hi. My apologies for the fact that not all of you are here, but those of you who are here, and welcome to the METAdungeon panel. I want to say panel. We've had it pitched as a panel, where as sort of an announcement, sort of a light chat about the scheme which we've cooked up over the last few years, and I thought I would start with asking the panel to introduce who they are and then why they're here. And we'll start with me. I'm Grant Howitt, the closest thing that Roanoke and Deckard has to a professional face man. Not the actual friendliest guy in the office. That's Matt, and he does all the talking. But they put me in front of a camera, and I'm here to, I suppose, host. No, sorry, change the energy. Hi, I'm here to host. It's going to be great, and we're going to have a wonderful time. All 46 of you. So, first up, Kieran Gillen, who are you and why are you here?
I'm Kieran Gillen. I have Christmas presents piled up here, so no one report Christmas presents to anyone I know. I've got parcels of people, I guess that's what it is. I'm a writer. I've written a load of comics. I wrote Die with Stephanie Hans, which is a comic which Hugo nominated a number of times and did really well and we've brought back. And I wrote an RPG because I'm foolish. And that's why I'm here, I guess. And also because Chant told me to turn up.
Yes, absolutely. He did tell us to do that. Let's hear more from Gareth Ryder Hanrahan. How much of my name of your name should I throw in there?
It's entirely up to you. I mean, I think Gar Hanrahan or Gar or you.
Okay.
Orc.
Who are you?
I'm Gareth Hanrahan or Gareth Ryder Hanrahan, depending on how wide the spine of the book is. I write stuff. Most relevantly for this, I wrote Dagger in the Heart. I wrote some Monsters Die. I did Moria for the One Ring. I did the Stone Thief 13th Age. I've done lots of role-playing stuff and novels and so forth. And several years ago, I DM'd Kieran on Twitter, wasn't it? But you could totally do a dungeon crawl with based on Planetary and old dungeons and Die and stuff. And then forgot about it.
Yeah, it was definitely. It says how old this was. It was on Twitter, a place where no one is here. So yeah, it was just like message out the blue. It's like, yes, a dungeon-based archaeology, and it was like, yes, we should do that at some point. It's some point now.
Yes, this is the point.
We were also. I remember Kieran, you were interested in putting together like a history of Gen Con for an adventure at Gen Con.
Yeah, I did. I ran a game. At Gen Con, the first Gen Con I ever did, and it's basically me taking Robin D. Laws' book and turning it into a dungeon adventure. So basically, the adventurers had to go through 6 periods of Gen Con to try to chase down this utterly embittered designer who definitely wasn't meant to be Arneson. But it's basically, it was about people's journey, what games meant to them, what Gen Con was at different times. And it really worked interestingly because it worked as a classic Die adventure. It was fun, it was emotional, it was human. But it also was like people kept... What's it? Gen Con was at the Playboy Mansion one year. You know, that kind of... The basic historical stuff was also interesting to people. And like this, that was a tiny microcosm. And doing that made me sort of think, oh no, God is onto something. There's something really kind of meaty and interesting about the meta and the satire and the actual educational value. There's a loaded, petrifying phrase.
I realise we're maybe jumping again a little bit here.
We are.
We haven't explained what Die is. We've done you, and we've done what this is. But now I think I'd like Kieran. Could you give us the briefest possible pitch for what Die is?
Goth Jumanji.
Yes.
That's the briefest pitch.
Now, is it Jumanji?
Not really. Let's not go there.
No, it's not really Jumanji. No, like
basically,
yeah.
It's a game about the comic is group of kids get together, play a haunted RPG, get dragged to a fantasy world where all their kind of awful trauma and hopes and fears get thrown back at them, and they decide whether to go home or not. And the comic picks up like 30 years later when they're dragged back in again. So it's about all that kind of big human stuff. The game is the comic in that way. So it teaches you how to make a group of messed up human beings, how to drag them to a fantasy world, how to make the fantasy world reflect their nonsense back at them, and then reach a climax as they all kind of decide whether they rather collapse into fantasy or return with the knowledge they've learned in the game to real life. And that was always kind of the idea. I think that this is how you do Die. And that's what we did, basically. And people seem to like it. Except the people who don't, who are wrong.
Good. Yeah, fair enough. Die is also, I think, probably up until Hollows, it's going to be the biggest thing that we've published as well. It's a honking great book. I think Hollows is a little bit longer than it, and that's on account of all the rules we've had to put in.
Yeah.
But Die is a proper beast, and the second half of it comes as the final 2/3. Basically, Kieran Gillen sitting down with you and very gently teaching you how to run a role-playing game like Kieran Gillen, and it's great and it works. It's a heartbreaking, like tearful experience in a way which I can only recommend. Back to the idea of this meta dungeon, of this dungeon. What is history? Gah. It seems like an obvious answer, and as in, why did you pick a dungeon to talk about Dungeons and Dragons? But what was it? What was it possessed you to do this strange thing?
It sounded cool.
Oh, Kieran! Kieran, can you not hit your computer when we're trying to talk?
Sorry. No, it sounded cool. Dungeons as well. I mean, they're an interest. I have this theory that basically role playing only started working because of dungeons. Because previous types of role playing, like the Bronte stuff and so forth, all the characters talk to each other. That's really, really hard to run. But a dungeon, because it constrains your choices, constrains the environment, it breaks choices down to like, do you go left or right, north or south, open the door, not open the door. It's sort of training wheels for the bigger roleplay experience. So you boil it down, roleplay to its essence, it is making a series of interesting choices. And a dungeon makes those choices very, very concrete. And plus, there's been so many books about the history of roleplay in the last couple of years. I don't need to do any primary research, just grab designers and dragons and play at the world and go, right, what are the cool bits?
I mean, Dungeons is a great metaphor for archaeology. You know what I mean? If you talk about a game that's historical, you're going down levels, it's structured, and then we're going to get into this, I'm sure, but they'll cut the structure of a dungeon as the dungeon ecology. And that's a great way to talk about the critical dynamics of games in different periods, and also to be funny. Anyway, sorry.
Critical dynamics. I like it. Now, it is an excellent metaphor for archaeology if we did it backwards. Unfortunately, for everyone's sake, and for it to make the most sense, we're starting in the 70s. Our first, I believe, is that right? The first story of our dungeon is set firmly in Wisconsin.
But certainly in the 70s. Basically, we'll start with, it's going to be organized sequentially through the ages. I do want to have secret passages where basically, if you know the designers involved, you can sort of follow someone's career through the dungeon. You get to the Ars Magica room and you can find the secret tweet door. You can skip on or secret Ryan Hagen door.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Actually, how litigious is this going to get? Are we going to get in trouble? Because Kieran only wrote about dead creatives in Die.
Well, I was about to say, fortunately, many of them are dead. That's both tasteless.
That's really
You're just waiting them to die, and then you can
exactly.
I've got a man waiting outside Robin D. Laws' house with a gun.
Oh God! Yeah.
No. What's supposed to put this? I am really interested in basically following real designers. That sounds even worse.
Well, no, yeah. And you're a big guy.
But I imagine we will have to. Plus, just because it's not an accurate historical textbook, it's going to be basically interpretations you're gaming. We will be doing combining characters and creating your own fictional designers whose careers will echo real life ones. So yes, hopefully not litigious at all. But
do you remember what we did? Specifically, there's some stuff we do in Die. We include H.G. Wells and the Brontes, but we aggressively have them say we're not them.
Yeah.
And that's and it's one of these bits where it's a sleight of hand where partly it's actually me going, I don't want to do this to the Brontes, in that way. This hasn't happened to the Brontes. They didn't really get predated upon by an RPG. But at the same time, thematically, at least as far as I know, but at the same time, it's also ridiculously over-researched as well. But so they're kind of the quotation marks around it all gave me a bit of a leeway. And I suspect that, Guards to Discover, there's lots of wiggle room to have. In this, in the same way I said in that short adventure I did at Gen Con, I was doing someone inspired by Arneson, but it wasn't just Arneson.
Yeah.
It was somebody who had a different path for the industry, but it was that kind of inspiration of somebody who got burnt out in different ways and their journey and what happened to people. So yeah.
So I think like one of the things one of the balances which we're going to have to strike in this is to get a middle ground between nostalgia and history. And I'm interested to see like how much of a text the two of you are interested in this being, because Kieran was throwing around the word education earlier. I don't think this is going to be taught anywhere. But I'm intrigued. Like, are you interested in like how close to being an education do you want this to skew, or is this more of an evocative stuff?
I was about to say Emily's in the audience, so I was about to say
yeah.
Emily will teach. Emily teaches any old nonsense. Sorry, Emily.
I hear they're teaching APs at university now. Can you imagine that?
What?
Can you imagine that? It's like that degree in David Beckham. Anyway, yes. History versus nostalgia versus evocation. What do you feel?
I mean, the other Venn diagram is just playability, because everything has to be actually like a usable game supplement and a usable adventure. Yeah. I think evocation is sort of like the key word. Like you're not going to, if you want an accurate history of the role-playing industry, blah blah, go read textbooks. If you want to basically play a game that reminds you of that era or brings up interesting points about that era, then this is where we're going with that. Plus,
it's what the comic did as well. It's kind of like how can you do something fun with the Brontes, but you're doing something fun. And it's like, I don't know what Goal will end up doing, but it's like when I mentioned the Playboy bunnies, it's not like I did the big kind of like, here's a breakdown of the Playboy structure, why they're there. I did rabid Playboy bunnies trying to stop you getting into the mansion. And the other fact I got was like the younger gamers couldn't really be allowed to go anywhere where other players were. So I did something with that. And it's like, so basically looking at the history and turning it into something that's fun and gameable and a little bit silly in my case. You know what I mean? Like, so, and that's incredibly low level of educational. As in, I'll walk away from that going, they played at the Playboy, Jane Cole was at the Playboy Manor once. That's educational, but it's not the point of it.
It's like the fun facts level of education, right? Rather than the university degree.
Horrible histories of gaming.
Now,
back to Parasite.
That's a much better pitch than anything I've come up with so far. I've been writing the pitches. I like that. I think so horrible histories were such a God. I adored them. It was wonderful. It was so. I think I might be the youngest person in this room, or certainly the youngest person on this panel. But I remember them being absolutely formative for me in terms of like, here is something that's accessible, and it's like we are not attempting to teach you a holistic understanding of the political movements, but more. Do you want to see some gross stuff? And it was. Yeah, it was great. And so good.
It sticks to your head as memorable, and if you want to learn more, you have that sort of foundation. Which is, I think,
yes.
Yeah, and one thing we were talking about is like Goal. It's also things like depending on how much ends up being writing, it's something we've talked about, as in how much you choose to tweak the rules as you go through the dungeon.
That's one of my questions I was interested in.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. Please, I was about to say, hey, we both have the same idea. How clever are we?
So, like in terms of like that's how understanding comics works, which is a classic comic text. It kind of just introduces storytelling techniques to explain them, and that's part of what Goal gets to do here in terms of like, okay, we're doing 1970s. What was 1970s jamming like? What was what kind of? I mean, one of the things I don't know if you're going to do this, Goal, but like parties used to be up to 50 people, and like, you know what I mean? Like,
100 people. Gary Gygax behind behind a blanket in his basement. Because the whole idea was the GM screen was literally like, the GM is behind a curtain, you cannot see the GM.
Yeah, that comes from Kriegspiel, doesn't it? Like you go all the way back, and it's Kriegspiel being the formative German military.
I owe Chan £5. He bet me we talk about Kriegspiel in the first half
hour. Well played, Chant.
But it does come back, and I think there's something. I think that
I imagine the first level is going to be very much your classic dungeon crawl. Like I was looking at was it Palace of the Vampire Princess last night, which is the very first published module. It's up. You can get up and drive through, and it's not very good. I wouldn't recommend it.
It's the first one they did.
I know, it's hilarious because basically all it is like you get this like this page of like backstory, like there's this dwarven princess being kidnapped as a vampire in an island, and there are maps and a list of monsters, and there's like no actual like description of the rooms, right? It's like, you know, room 17 has a rat. Room 19, empty. Room 19, empty.
Just one rat.
Maybe a bit worse than that, but
That's funny. When I'm running die, normally one of my sort of when you're doing a dungeon bit, one of my classic tricks is this corridor is exactly 10 foot by 10 foot. You know, that I make it creepily so. You don't know how you know this, but so I try to turn D&D knowledge into cosmic horror. It's like you run down your fingers down the wall. It looks like rock, but it feels like graph paper. But I say by the by, that's great stuff. I've suddenly reminded something. I was back in the day before Quinton Smith became an RPG reviewer. One of the things he was trying to do was, back in the, he was trying to get hold of the first RPG which they ever ran at a con. As in, they kind of talking to the people who was based. I actually forget the name of the Pacific dungeon he was doing, but going and getting increasingly earlier version of it, to try to get some kind of the dungeon experience.
Just first dungeon.
Yeah, and I don't know how far we got in that, so I'm going to message him, see if he's got anything useful, because that's the sort of shit which would be interesting. Anyway,
surely the first dungeon is the Babylonian underworld.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the first dungeon crawl. That guy went it was that book he went in to get his boyfriend.
Yeah, you know, Enki and all the rest.
Yeah,
That's an indie RPG I want to do about the Minotaur. Like specifically, like it's basically the observation that it's the first real dungeon crawl. It's a game, and it's obviously it's a story game because it's about 13 utterly alienated and abused children. You know, the 12. One is the 12 kids been sent from Athens, and the Minotaur is also an abandoned child. This is about parents abandoning their children, and that's what the dungeons were for. It's to throwing children into, metaphorically, what D&D is. And scene.
Yeah, keep it light, huh?
There'll be jokes. I'm not saying do that game, but
good. So in 1970, we are having 50 adventurers. A Gygax behind a curtain. We're filling in our own dice. I'm interested to see, like, do you reckon we could squeeze percentile dice, or is that like late 70s, early 80s?
They were only invented in the 80s, if I know. Like Luzaki only invented them in the 80s. The first ones were D10 twice.
So we've got. I think we can. I mean, I was about to say we can all imagine what old school looks like. Apparently, I don't even know what shape the dice were, but I'm intrigued to see just sort of like I suppose a précis or a teaser for each of the decades as we go through. So 70s. Black and white, bad drawings, owl bears, etc. In the 80s, I seem to remember an awful lot of hit location charts and bullet penetration charts coming into play.
And plus, the 80s was like the era we got out of the dungeon, and suddenly there's games about everything.
Oh, the Dallas RPG.
Dallas RPG, but like there were science fiction games before that, but it was like when I took off the first licensed games. It's sort of the Precambrian explosion of gaming, and then the 90s are pretty obviously Vampire, White Wolf,
Edge.
Indeed. Yeah. But also that's when Magic started up, and Magic is, I think, going to play a chunk just because if we are doing the history of D&D, then that also is the history of WotC and
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and that feels like a lot of material for sort of an East Wing, as it were. Especially saying it's like on the second floor of the dungeon. Now, I'll quote you here: "We leave the dungeon."
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about Die and its approach to game work is like, we can do a big dungeon. The dungeon does not have to be 10 by 10 rooms. But you can go into a room and it this like vast kingdom or whatever. We can play with space and time quite happily.
It's like that makes a really interesting comparison to Heart. I remember being in Grant's kitchen, and he was the first time he ever told me about Heart. I was working on Die, and I was aware they are very sister games in perverse ways. You know, they're about they've got a very metaphorical approach to the dungeon, and anything could be down there.
I think that as well. Like, it's not precise, but I think you and I are kind of sad in the same shape, Kieran.
I'm sad because I'm bald. You're sad. I'm not sad. I'm fine with being bald.
I'm not sad anymore. But I think there's the whole sort of hey, do you ever think about death?
Yes.
sort of thing. Like I feel there's definitely a connection there, and about how much death matters in both of them, despite the fact that you have to do it, please. Yeah. Okay. So we've got our goths in the 90s, and we've got the rise of magic.
Oh, one thing to say, and of course, Die itself is deliberately kind of homaging 90s games in itself. Like, Die is kind of written because it's based around dice pools, and as part of the design was like, okay, what would have been a slightly precocious teenager to try to design in 91?
Yes.
And you kind of look at Die's world building, it's a bit like Torg, it's a bit like Rifts. You know, it's a bit like that meets White Wolf. So there's a bit...
Upend everything.
Yeah. So there is you know what I mean? Like, let's have it all. They're the maximalist. So there's a bit of that in Die, just because I was trying to work out what Soul would do in 91. But, sorry.
No. Kieran, please do not apologise for exclusive insights about Die in this Die panel. I need as many of those as you got. You keep interrupting me for those. So we've got obviously, yes, we have the vampires, we have the dice pool system, we have the arrival of, I'm gonna say, Edge. And what if we could be cool, or at least like dark, whilst playing these games. In the 2000s, that's when I started around the 2000s. I came in at that point. So my first RPG was as a budding goth, Vampire the Masquerade, and then Demon the
Demonator.
Not the Soviet Union one, the one where Fallen things. Yeah, not the Cold War one, the one where they were like not the Machine God one, the one where they were just sort of infiltrating. And the example of play includes a 45-minute improvisation about how shit God is.
Sounds great.
That and Hunter the Reckoning. So those were the first role-playing games I ever saw, and I'm very glad I got out. Very glad I moved on. But I was a little bit behind the times. All those were older games. I'm intrigued to see what we're drawing on from the thousands and from the turn of the century as we approach this brave new millennium.
I mean, for the 2000s, I mean, the two big things to my mind are, one, D&D, the OGL, and that whole resurgence into D&D. And the other is the Forge and that whole movement. I think they're the two big movements in the gaming space.
And I think
also World of Warcraft, because that started off around then and had a large impact on.
Yeah, I think D&D 4th edition is probably the end of that era, and then the other. I think the two ends of that era are D&D 4th edition and Powered by the Apocalypse. In my head, like that's my historical line I will draw.
Yeah, I can see a definite turn in, like, Powered by the Apocalypse is from the Forge and for the Forge, and then it outstripped it. As I was like, hang on a second, something semi-accessible from the Forge.
Yeah, it's the breakout band. It's like, it's the classic music metaphor.
Yeah, and I think like it's like, and then because of Apocalypse World, we got Blades in the Dark, and we had that sort of indie proliferation that came out, and it's intriguing seeing like both of those. Like, you consider the indie proliferation, and like, Bully Pulpit came about in that way at that time. We're seeing like some household names, as it were, in terms of indie publishers happening. But also we've got Green Ronin, who have a fire hose of 3.5 content, which they are forcing down every game store's gullet. And there was shovelware. in kind of an interesting way. Physical shovelware.
Yeah. Go. When did you start writing? It was this period, right? Is that when you would start being published?
Yeah, I did. Basically, my first writing was for Blue Planet back in 1999. But then my real job went away, and I went, I'll try freelancing. And for a while, it was yes, there was lots of D20 shovelware back in the day. I learned all about, for example, how Jim Pinto hates small creatures.
How who?
So I wrote this. Jim Pinto, he was the editor at Alderac.
Okay.
I wrote this writing of like these swamp creatures, and he went, "They're terrible. It's awful." I went, "What did I do wrong?" And I asked my editor, Mike Burrows, at the time, actually. I said, "Oh, Jim doesn't like small creatures. Make them tall." I changed them from small swamp creatures to 7-foot tall swamp creatures, Perfect. Off it goes.
I mean, I've
That's
seen
amazing.
Wading Bird. That checks out. If you just lengthen the legs.
Yeah, indeed.
That's creepy. Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, actually, I was on the Forge as well back in the day. I was on Forge before it was the Forge. We were all on Gaming Outpost. So that section I lived through. I remember arguing simulations at 3 a.m.
The funny thing is that I drifted out of games in 98, 99, or like RPGs. Like basically when I became a full-time games journalist, I stopped doing. I mean, I still was interested in one eye, but I wasn't involved in the scene. That kind of like that wave was my last stuff, and then I came back in Monster Hearts. So like, and I played like D&D, Warhammer 3rd Edition, and there's a couple of things along the way, but like that decade is a dead decade for me, apart from vaguely. So that's a period I've historically researched because I wasn't there. So I love hearing you two talk about it because it's not my.
I was barely there, Kieran. I was about 14. Let's not,
No, 14. You're more there if you're 14 than ever, I believe. 14. You're committed.
No, I'm terribly sorry. You see, because at 14 I discovered girls. Now they would go on to not discover me for 5 years, but it was a difficult 5 years.
See, this tends to be a theory that basically gaming is all about sort of like recapturing how you were when you were 12. Trying to capture that, like the essence of the very first game. Like I remember my first D&D scenario, or first D&D session, my first Call of Duty session. Every moment, every beat of those, and so much is trying to go back and recapture the mystery of that.
I remember my first Middle-earth game. My first Middle-earth game, I was 10, and I had no idea what was going on. So we just cut out the little cardboard figures and pushed them around, and occasionally rolled on the table and said a word. Oh, yeah. So
like dice.
No, literally, like, we were pretty much pushing the figures around with our nose because we were like 10. We weren't going to deal with Rollmaster. You know what I mean?
No, Jinx. I genuinely cannot remember my first D&D game. I know that I was a cleric, and I know that I got a wand of Cat's Grace, and I know that we killed a zombie Minotaur. But I don't remember any other details from it. It was a 5-hour experience.
My first D&D game, we were playing the dungeon from the Red Box. I remember my cleric had 1 hit point, walked in, got killed with a carrion crawler in the front room. The GM says, "No, it's fine. You come back to life." Go into the second room, was a chimney with a bat up it. I looked at the chimney, the bat fell on me, I died again. And the GM said, "Okay, your god comes back and resurrects you." Well, now you've got 6 hit points. The GM was 9.
That's surprisingly kind.
That's real character. I love that. It's character growth. Okay, like GM tips: occasionally give your players more hit points.
Sometimes as many so they can play the game.
Yep, indeed. That's just dying every second room.
So
yeah.
we come out. We emerge from the Forge into blinking brand new into we've got the 2010s, which is obviously when like Rowan, Rick, and Deckard arrived, and it's fine. But I'm intrigued to see what you've got for 2010s, and then because I don't think we've really pinned it down yet, what the fuck we're doing for now, and whether we do anything.
I mean, the 2010s are like the Sonic Apocalypse world. There's D&D 5. There's the sort of start of streaming.
Yes, and the actual plays, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's nicely bookended by both COVID and Die coming out. But yeah, I think that the gaming sort of both splintering and becoming mainstream. Like we're on Discord. Discord is in some ways is a disaster because everyone is off in their own silos. And it's very hard to get a sort of sense of the whole industry. Like you walk. Like I remember a few years ago, we were at the Emmy Awards. I'm still going, and the award goes to Shudderdark. The award goes to Shudderdark.
Shudderdark.
Google.
Oh yeah, I was
Shudderdark. I haven't heard of it.
They did very well.
They did very, very well. It's a lovely game. But back in like the 2000s, I would have felt okay. I know every single like major games out there. Whereas it's so easy for stuff to get a following to build up a huge community, and just be that community sort of cut off from the rest of them, or so unless you've got those connections. That also might be old enough kids. that also works for
Yes,
yourself.
that is true. We are all getting on now, and we have other things that I find that the harder I work at this, the less I understand about role playing games.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
so, what are we doing for now?
We're still debating it.
We kind of want to ask the audience as well. And like so my immediate stance is we try and offer 3 futures for what happens in the next 5 years and guess, because I worry about like taking any gambits on what the 2020s are about means it's going to age terribly.
Yeah. Everything ages terribly. I mean, it's also the multiple choice is interesting. As in, okay, here are some trends. Let's extrapolate them out to ridiculous level. So we go from the 2010s to the 2010s, and you say, okay, if gaming is more like this, let's go to the ridiculous extreme. And it's almost like the choose your. Okay, do you think it's going to be more actual plays? Okay, everyone in the world is watching 2 people play a game, or like actually no, everyone watching you play your solo RPG, and you've reinvented novel writing. It's like there's fun stuff you can do even if you don't know, and not knowing I think is real. The questions are more interesting than the answers in some ways, I think.
I would like some answers though, given the nature of this performance.
I think the game has to end with what you, because the whole go obviously you're writing it, but my entire thing is we're explaining what gaming has been. So what is gaming to you? And in some level, Die the RPG itself is asking every table, what do you think this game is? And by definition, or by implication, what do you think gaming is? Why have you come to this table? Why are you around with these people?
Why are we doing this for each
other?
Yeah.
So when you've looked at the entire history of gaming, the 2010s is going to eventually turn the lens back on the viewer in terms of like, okay, what do you think gaming is for now? Because this is
especially if we see it like. By the way, sorry, did you just reference the 2010s as next decade?
Yeah, I can't remember words.
Okay, cool. It's like if you think about Jay Dragon's like work in this field about about how it's supposed to, like how you're supposed to be ignoring the rules and acknowledging that but not acknowledging that but acknowledging that but in a sexy way, and how what's the phrase, like rules are a cage and I'm a puppy girl, that sort of thing. I think like there's like getting very metatextual in this. Hang on, sorry, I just want to see. Sorry, I just saw Chance saying, I am personally putting a pin in, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't. Yeah, we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah.
And where were we? Yes. So, Kieran, 2010s, Far Future, APs, 2 people, solo games. I feel like a lot of people in the chat have been saying solo games, and I'm inclined to agree. I didn't really know about solo games until like I saw them. I'm gonna say mid 2010s on itch, and it was much, and like they were less structured in that way, in as much as it was the sort of a Adira Slattery go to the woods and shout at a tree sort of solo game. And there were game poems in a way, and I see now much more like what they call Montford Tales, I believe is the name. Of people who do like solo letter writing RPGs, or like 10,000-Year-Old Vampire, or like Final Girl, I think is a solo game. And there's this like I don't play solo games, and the line I have is that I'm perfectly capable of being depressed and overthinking things without a book. But I see that a lot of people do, and I see that a lot of people are very inspired by them. I think they're quite meditative. They're quite. They're certainly.
The whole lonely fun thing goes right back to the dawn of the hobby, where like GMing for a long time, its own entirely separate. Like it's just going back to the whole like drawing endless dungeons on graph paper.
Yes. Yeah, it's just a prep bit, right?
Yeah. I'm running Mythic Bastion Land at the moment, and it's like that's the closest I've got to doing anything like that for a while. I'm gonna who lives in this kingdom? Ooh. How do they feel about the ruler? You know what I mean?
Are you having fun with Bastion Land?
I'm really enjoying it a lot. It's absolutely it hits something really quite hard on me, and I'm good at it. I feel, and that's actually, and I don't say that in a way which I'm saying that I'm surprised by it in terms of it seems to be very much built for the GMing skills that I have, which let me rephrase that. I have found a way to make it run for the GM skills that I have in a way that's rewarding.
I think that what Bastion Land does and what you do is very competently state few things and then draw connections.
Yeah,
and that's where you can, and story falls out of it.
Yeah. It's like I find Mythic Bastion. I've created a quite realistic world, which I then juxtapose with these really weird myths. So I've got a very serious like War of the Roses kind of battle going on, and then the entire kingdom's been in fog for 20 years now. What you know what I mean? Like, so it's basically they're trying to do an actual war game, but the weirdest shit keeps on dropping on top of them, and oh no, it's suddenly winter. And now all the then of course I'm running a military game, so okay, all the armies are now starving to death because that's trapped. You know, that it works really well. I love it. Anyway,
good. We've got some audience questions. Thank you. Hello, audience. We are listening to you. Producer Chant.
Oh, someone said GMless, by the way, which several people do. I think GMless is an interesting trend.
I'm not sure if I agree with that being a recent thing, if I'm honest with you.
But like mid 2010s onwards, I mean, certainly more so now.
I
guess you go out to Fiasco was a big one.
There's also nothing new under the sun. Like you go back to like playing at the World, and they were doing the weirdest stuff back in the 70s. Like like I said, like old dungeons are training wheel. Like they start off with that, and then 5 minutes later, who's in charge of these orcs? Bob's in charge of those orcs.
Or go to 19th century parlor games. You know that kind of like the proto RPG stuff. There's a lot of shit out there.
Tell us about 19th century parlor games before I go on to
I would have to Google them.
Hey,
it's like,
hey, Emily.
Oh yeah, Emily has dropped them in.
Wow, that's fast. Wow, what's she got here? Oh, it's the Wobbapalooza. Wow, we have, I think, yes, I remember this one. Yes, this is an excellent list of old-timey parlor games, which are basically role-playing.
But this is one of this. We haven't really talked about, say, stretch. We've got the strong core of the game, but the great thing about METAdungeon is there's room for stretch goals in there in terms of like extra. And it's like, oh, here's a sub-dungeon where we get, I don't know, Emily to write a dungeon about 18th century parlor games. You know what I mean? Like, and it just sits as a side bit to go over to quest.
I really like doing a side quest about a part of history that you've got no idea.
But that's what you hire people to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll talk about you saying things like that live on stream once we finish.
No, I meant that as in we don't know about. As in, we haven't. There's thinking about the larger. We've got a real great core project. And there's lots of things we'd like to do, but it's like maybe we've got ideas for other stuff we do as well.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
That's literally
and the academics that we hire or endorse are separate from that. Right. So Chant has unfortunately not copied over the names of the people who's asked these questions, but someone asked, will you include game designer John Wick, just to confuse everyone who has never heard of game designer John Wick?
I don't know.
First, now with my gardening gloves on. How about you, Gar?
I mean, let's see. Five Rings was a big game back in the day, part of the 90s stuff. And it could just be hilarious, like see how many players have heard of like John Wick, the movie character, and like don't worry, John Wick is coming to save you. And then John Wick bursts the door, but no,
just some guy who's into like elaborate LARPs.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably not, but maybe one jig. Can players kill the author? Someone else asks, can my players kill the author in this METAdungeon? Now, I think if Kieran were writing it, but
I mean, to drag it back to the die structure, the current plan is that the villain of the campaign is the gatekeeper, who is older gamer who's basically lived through all this, is like perennially unsatisfied with their gaming. They've tried pretty much everything. They've dragged you into die to make you appreciate gaming properly, and possibly rekindle their own love of gaming. And you can either have some sort of huggy, they learn to interest inner child, learn to love the games again, or you can stab them in the face and kill them, and then say the game is over. So yes, you will be able to kill the author,
but not you.
No.
It'd be like it's we keep the master role, and in fact, actually, this comes in. This ties up with the third question. Oh, Kieran, do you have a comment?
Can we have a stretch goal to kill Gar?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's the sort of stretch goal that I'm into. And it would be it would be a side mission. It would be like a new game plus. The world's best scenario designer is chained up in a basement. Here's a gun.
We just think about giving me stats, and then gamers will kill it.
Yeah, that's very true. Someone, a third and final person, asks, how do you preserve the emotional intensity when the whole world isn't inspired by the player characters? Great point, someone. How are we doing that?
There are two things we're doing. One, while we are going to be drawing more real history of gaming than from the experience of the players in a typical die game, there'll still be lots of places where we'll be able to plug in the characters' backstories and do the whole emotional resonance thing. The other thing is, in a regular Mega Dungeon, one of the defining qualities of it is there are multiple entrances and exits. It's Mega Dungeon is a regular dungeon. You go in the front door, you go through it, you kill the boss, go back out again. Mega Dungeon you're supposed to return to over and over and over. So we're going to have a bit in the game where you leave die and return to the real world or some facsimile of the real world.
God, facsimile? Oh, come on, man, that's horrible.
It might be the real world overlaid with the emotional.
Sure. Yeah. You're still staying
emotional tenor, emotional patina of the gatekeeper, and basically you reconnect with your persona stuff, and you basically get to do the whole interpersonal drama outside the game, and then go back in. So the emotional intensity will be more of a sort of a sine wave, where there'll be moments of relief and relaxation, and then back down into the pit.
Yeah. There's I would also sort of stress, if you look at Die works in a couple of modes, and Die the comic works in a couple of modes. And one of them is much more digging into what a game's for, what the games do, and exploring these characters' response to them. And then there's the deep personal drama, kind of throw the world back at them kind of stuff. Die RPG so far has been much more about the latter. It doesn't mean it can't be about the former. And I think in some ways that this is doing something slightly different to a classic Die game is kind of the point. It definitely does a lot of the big personal stuff, but it's feeding another master as well, and that creates a different kind of pleasure, which is at least part of the point of doing it as well. Does that make sense?
A little bit. Yeah. So, I've gone through... So, I haven't gone through all my questions. The last question I've got here is, what's Die about this anyway? Surely it'd be better suited to a 5e compatible system. Should we just write this in 5th Ed, lads?
Should write all the editions. You have to change editions every exactly, level. Yeah.
I mean, think of the marketing, you're going to buy 6 different rule books.
We can get these suckers to buy every single one. Yeah. Daddy needs a new pair of Birkenstocks. Good, right. I think that's everything. Especially, I'd like to mention through this, we've had some delightful and honestly provocative and confronting questions from the audience. I feel like we've stated what this is. This is part of the Mega Dungeon affair, which is running on Back a Kit next year in April, I believe. Headed up by Goodman Games. They are encouraging folks to release METAdungeons or put METAdungeons up on Back a Kit. And we, Matt, our professional friendly person, really likes DCC and is chats to the folks at Goodman Games when we go to cons. And so we were eager to come on board with this because it sounds like a fun idea. And we had this Mega Dungeon in our back pocket, getting increasingly heavy. So it'll be going live in April. I want to say April 7th, I think. You can follow. You can find the link. Chant will post the relevant links. I'm sure someone will post the relevant links to follow if you've not already. But I presume if you're one of the 50 people in this room who have, go click it. I do. Hang on a sec. Oh, hang on.
Dave Canifus has a question. Actually.
Oh yes, I saw you. If you have time for one more question, I haven't read the question, but I'm feeling charitable, so let's see if we do. If you have time for one more question, what's your advice / hopes for players that aren't familiar with some of the periods the METAdungeon is paying homage to? The Diacanthus, great question, and thank you for asking it. The important thing is that you buy the book. This is an education for you. But go on.
In Die, you've got basically Ash's commentary on what's going on all the time, is off where all the context comes in. I think that would be something similar here, where basically you've got the gatekeeper reminiscing about stuff or ranting about stuff in short text bits that are flavorful, but also informed about what's going on. So basically, we will give enough context for even those who aren't steeped in the era to get the tone of it all.
Yeah. There's two screenwriting rules. Like one is turn exposition into ammunition, and one is show don't tell. And often things usually misunderstood. But like exposition into ammunition means that we've got this. The scenario, in some degree, will explain the setting. So you know what I mean. You don't need to know a bit because that's why the scenario is explaining the setting. And show don't tell is also like that, as in it's kind of this is. If you make a mechanic in the period and if you do tweak the mechanic so it makes it more 1970s, people act like I see what the mechanic is doing because I've now experienced it. You don't need to explain what these, you don't need to explain about how Vancian magic changes the system if your characters suddenly have to deal with Vancian magic. I mean, I don't think God's going to do this, but like when I'm running Diet, there's one thing I regularly do. There's one region in the world where you suddenly have to do grid combat. Like all the rest of the game is normal phase of the mind, and in here everything is grids, and then it changes the way players interact with every part of the fiction. So that's the way of teaching players that's what a battle map does by giving them a battle map.
That's something I'm really looking forward to seeing, like how we can take the very flexible system of die and start fucking with it in some really fundamental ways.
Yeah. I also think that I think it's just gonna be a good book to read. A lot of people. That's the actual side of it. Like you're gonna read it, and it will teach you.
If you don't know Gar's work, you ought. Yeah. He is genuinely. I'm not blowing smoke up his arse. This isn't me trying to promote the thing because again, you're already following it. You're already going to buy it if you're here. Gar is the best scenario writer in the business, and I'm overjoyed to have him turn up at our front door once every couple of years and say, "Hello, I have a book," and then we buy it off him. It's great. Broadly, even if you aren't aware, I'm very sure Gareth will hold your hand nice and gentle and show you how it all works.
It will hopefully be entertaining and readable.
Entertaining and readable. That's a
exactly. There's a cover blurb for you.
There's a quote by the author. Right, that wraps it up for us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming along and chatting. Thank you, everyone, for asking questions.
I just two more
questions. Someone just derailed my outro. What we got?
How long do we take to get through it? We don't really know yet. I think. Gar, would that be fair? And the second one,
no idea. It was the will there be pre-gens based on specific real people?
Yeah, presumably. Yeah, why not? No. I don't know. I don't think we should have pre-gens in Die. I think that you make your own character, your own thing.
Yeah.
And now, I will stress, you are free, audience, free to infringe whatever copyright you like. They can't touch you. It's us that they get angry at.
Yeah.
But if you want everyone playing David Bowie, his estate can't do shit about it unless you publish it.
I just love the idea of playing through Dungeon as Gar Gygax.
Just behind the curtain the whole time. Right, that's it for us. I'm going to go make some dinner. Thank you, Gar. Thank you, Kieran. Everyone, if you've not followed us, please do follow that. Otherwise, tell your friends to follow it. And gear up for what is a very exciting book and what is not like other things we've published in the past. I'm intrigued to see how it all goes. So good night. We love you. Love and fury. Bye. How do we end this?